All right. Can we all see the slideshow?
Yes,
Sweet.
we're all good.
Awesome. All right. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about Emporous, which helps enable the next generation of managing the software supply chain assets. So my name is Andy Block. I'm a distinguished architect with Red Hat. I'm a maintainer on the Emporous project. I like to lead a lot of the community outreach for the project and to share some of the great things that we are doing in the project and kind of where we're going. So management, as we know, the management of software is complex, especially its lineage, very complex. You got everything from source code, vulnerabilities, dependency management, how you're managing all of your images, what deployment tools that you have, and how you handle all of that. It's complex. It's not easy at all. I don't know why I'm telling you that, because guess what? We have plenty of sources that we have to worry about. We have formats. I don't know why it keeps doing that. And we also have dependencies. Every single one of these is very important that we have to manage at heart. But we're here in Ortelius. We kind of already know this already, because we want to be able to provide that view of organization security profiles through open source solutions. So the good news is we can rebuild them. We have the technology. We also have Emporous that we're going to look into as well. And that's what really I want to talk to you about today is Emporous, which revolutionizes how organizations manage their software supply chain assets. There are really three key themes that I kind of want to talk about today where Emporous fits in. Where it enriches content, it will go in and add details to all the content that's out there. We also provide a unified API, so you have a single point of reference for you to query organizational data. And also, we enable searchability, which means that we can learn more about our entire software supply chain assets through a common interface in a way that is somewhat universal, no pun intended, because our project did come from the Universal Object Reference project. And we're using a lot of cool open source technologies that we're kind of talk about today. So we build on not only those technologies, but theories and themes, which means that we're not reinventing things. Now, we just went ahead and we just build upon things that are already out there. Emporous didn't invent the chicken, but it did combine 11 herbs and spices. Oh, wait a second. That was KFC. It wasn't Emporous. Okay. So Emporous, pardon me, didn't invent brand new technology, but it did change how technologies are utilized and applied. That is the difference, is that a lot of technologies try to invent new things. We didn't invent new things. We did it to an extent, but not really. We're just going ahead and reusing existing paradigms in a way that enables new opportunities to be leveraged. So let's take a step back and think about a little bit of theory. So think about hashes. Hashes are all over the place. You use them in checksums, you use them on container images. Basically, a hash can be applied to anything. Anything could be a single letter, it could be a book, it could be a database record. When something is hashed, it's represented by a hash digest. And a hash digest has one thing that's absent of. It doesn't have any attributes. All you have is that digest. There's nothing to it. There's no capabilities or properties that you can add to it. It's just the digest. What we need to do is we need to then add some clarifications and classifications onto an object. So think about an object. I'm going to go ahead and I love my caffeine. So this bottle itself is round. It's glass. The drink inside is black. We're going ahead and we're describing pieces of this object. And they are also known as attributes. Now, attributes really enable that to be associated to a piece of content. And once you start to tag this information, you're able to then build relationships. And facilities are available to store attributes within the content. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So when you think about attributes, here's some other examples. We look at, some pieces of content equals true, animal equals dog, device equals radio. But the cool thing is that you can build those relationships. So what kind of content matches each other? So content on the left here matches content on the right, but does not match content in the middle. You can also look at creating hierarchical representations of said content, because one can lead to another, and from that, we can go ahead and create graphs that can be built upon these. And that's where you can build upon relationships to really be connected to any piece of the universe, whether they be both tangible or intangible. I mean, look at Google Maps. Google Maps uses graphs to describe the world. Now, what Emporous does is it extends this idea to everything in the entire universe. And this graphing mechanism can be defined in graph structures. So from that, we're able to actually build out an entire directed acrobat graph. Sorry, it's been a long day, to arrange that content. So you can really start to see the lineage of all these different structures to be built very easily. Now, one technology that we leverage exclusively right now in Emporous is the usage of OCI artifacts. It provides that universal format for storing content. Now think about all the different content that you have in your software ecosystem. You have Java jars, you have NPM modules. Those each have their own format and composition. What OCI has is a common format, but the cool thing about artifacts, so when we think about OCI artifacts, OCI, it's Open Container Initiative, for those of you who have not heard that acronym before. Think of it as a container image. If you go ahead and store content in a container image, you're like, okay, great. I go to Docker Hub, I go to Quay, I can store an image. But did you know that there is that functionality available now, that you can store additional types of content within standard container registries? And that allows us to open up the Pandora's box of how we can then reuse container registries. So by doing so, we can then leverage this new concept of artifacts by adding different artifact types within one of the pieces of metadata that's found in the storage and packaging of content that we store into these container registries. Now, I mentioned some names offhand, Quay, Docker Hub, etc. You have to enable functionality within your registry to make OCI artifacts available. So this is not a new thing. So it is used by other projects like Helm, Open Policy Agent, WASM, and even more. I'm a member of the Helm community and maintainer, and Helm's had support in some form or another for many, many years, probably 3 years at least. So this is not new. Very much like I said earlier about Emporous. It's not new technology. We're just leveraging it in a specific way to enable new functionality. So let's take a look at this in further detail. So whenever you store a container image, you're actually storing data in OCI format. So this is an example of an OCI artifact manifest. And as you see here, it is still using an image, so the registry sees it as an image, but we're able to detect it by the artifact type that's found in this piece of configuration data, the config manifest. And from that, we can add some versioning information and some format to it. And then from that, we can then go ahead and add traditional container layers. Think about a container as a layered file system. Same thing for an artifact. We can shove in different pieces of data inside these different layers. So for example, this is an example of a Helm chart. This is actually a good example. If you use OCI artifacts in Helm, this is what the content looks like in your registry. You have your config layer or your config form manifest, but then you have your different layers. So if you signed your chart using traditional GPG signing, you're going to store the provenance file, and then you're going to store the actual tar file of the package chart itself. And that's really just the composition of the artifact in the OCI registry. Now, the cool thing about that is that by storing resources in a consistent and universal format, we can then add some metadata to it. And OCI enables us to do so by adding annotations, both at the manifest level, at each individual layer, as well as at the config level. And they are a combination of both well-known annotations and user-defined annotations. Now, Emporous uses OCI annotations to store those attributes that I mentioned earlier. So here's an example of an OCI manifest that Emporous stores. You'll see we now have our own config media type. We also have all the different media types that we've now stored on layers. So you can see this is a JPEG image in this one layer. But under Emporous attributes, you can now see that we've gone ahead and added a few different, it's a little bit harder to see, but a few different attributes as annotation properties to this artifact. Animal equals fish. Content equals true. This is a user-defined annotation, but this one here, org open containers image title, this is one that is one that's done by convention by the OCI specification. So you can see how we're able to then take existing constructs and build upon them to enable new functionality. So how do we tie everything together? So basically, all the objects are arranged into a DAG. We go ahead and we address different resources within the graph by their attributes, and Emporous makes available a single unified API in which to reference and to interact with anything tangible or intangible in the universe. So what are some of the possibilities that are now enabled through Emporous? Now, this is not going to be comprehensive. It's only going to tackle only a small subset of all the possible use cases and integrations that are enabled. So first of all, for software inventory, what's contained in my applications? How do I go ahead and build out in this inventory that I can then search and find something? Do I have a jar in my, am I making use of my RPM? Or more importantly, what's affected by this CVE? Because as vulnerabilities continue to evolve, it's incredibly important what assets of your software supply chain is affected. And that's going to be available through Emporous. And finally, a deployment record. We provide a way to be able to provide an immutable record of what has been deployed in your environment. It's going to contain all the different assets, all the different artifacts, and all the different components that have been attached, like CVEs, etc., that can be now found through Emporous. But that's just the taste. There's so much more, so much more. However, the good news is, recently, the Emporous community joined forces with Ortelius as a sub-project that we announced at CDCon North America 2023. Jesus, that was only 2 weeks ago. I can't believe it. Time flies when you're having fun. We're in the process of migrating all of our repositories in the Emporous community over to Ortelius in the GitHub organization. So all of the repositories, so you can go search now, are prefixed with Emporous. And because it's important that not only the two communities come together, the Ortelius governing board has offered 2 seats to members of the Emporous community to not only take in the voice of the Emporous community, but to work together to show how we can both work and solve and provide solutions to the software supply chain issues. So, finally, I leave you. How do you get involved? That's the best part about this, because this is not just me talking. It's about you exploring, contributing, and making the next thing happen. So first of all, visit the website, emporous.io. It is now linked on the Ortelius website on the banner, so you can go up there and look at the banner. If you want to explore the code base, you can go in and look at all of the repositories that we brought in under the Ortelius organization. Then finally, if you want to get connected with the community, join the weekly community call, Wednesdays, 1800 GMT, where you can go ahead, work with the different members of the community, talk about how we can all solve challenges together. And with that, I want to thank you for the time today. I look forward to working with each and every one of you. I look forward to seeing what great things that we get to build together and provide new solutions to provide greater security and to make and solve the software security challenge. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andy. So appreciate it. It's so great to have you on the team. Really looking forward to starting to pass off the back end to you, and we can focus on the front end. Anybody have any questions? It's a really good time to ask questions if you have any questions right now about what we're up to.
I have a question for you. Is the graph bi-directional or is it only hierarchical?
Right now, it's only hierarchical.
Okay. I just want to make sure so when we deal with the relationships, we can, because
Yes.
we in on the Ortelius side in the database, we're bi-directional.
Okay.
So that's why I was just checking to make sure when we integrate that we handle that.
Yeah, we need to think about guac in that picture too. So Andy, I don't know if you've looked at their graphs.
I have not looked at their graphs. I am familiar with, their concepts at a high level, so I can certainly provide some insights as we start to explore what tooling and solutions they have available.
That would be awesome. Anybody else have any comments?
I can't wait to stick it in a Terraform box.
I know.
Yeah, well, that kind of leads into and I haven't done a lot of searching yet, but is there a like a mermaid architecture diagram of how the plumbing of Emporous is kind of hooked together?
I might have one. If not, Steve, you got a good point. We got to create one if we don't have one. So I can certainly work with you and other members of the community who want to learn more about Emporous, what information the team can provide, and then we can go ahead and work on making those available for more broad consumption.
That sounds good. That sounds like a plan.